Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It is my great pleasure to invite John Lear here today as our guest. He is a retired airline captain and former CIA contract pilot with over 19,000 hours of flight time, over 11,000 in command of 3 or 4 engine jet transports, and he's flown over 100 different types of aircraft in 60 different countries around the world. He retired in 2001 after more than 40 years of commercial flying. He is the son of Learjet inventor Bill Lear, and John holds more FAA airman certificates than any other FAA certificated airman. These include the Airline Transport Pilot certificate with 23 type ratings, flight instructor, flight engineer, flight navigator, ground instructor, aircraft dispatcher, control tower operator, parachute rigger, and mechanic, rated for both Airframe and Powerplant. John flew for the CIA in Southeast Asia, where between 1972 and 1973 logged 560 missions, of which over half were combat. He also flew contract missions in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa between 1977 and 1982. Over the last 17 years of his career, he's worked for several passenger and cargo airlines as captain, check airman, and instructor, and was certificated by the FAA as the North Atlantic Navigation Check Airman. He has extensive experience as a command pilot and instructor in the Boeing 707, Douglas DC-8, and Lockheed L-1011. He also holds 17 world records, including speed around the world in a Learjet Model 24 set in 1966, and was presented the PATCO Professional Air Traffic Controllers Association Award for Outstanding Airmanship in 1968. He is a senior vice president commander of the China Post 1, the American Legion's Post for Soldiers of Fortune, and a 29-year member of the Special Operations Association and member, pilot for 911truth.org. John is very controversial and has a lot of things he wants to share with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome John Lear to It's Rainmaking Time.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. Well, this is so heavy, your pilot background, that I really think we should start there because this has been your life.
Yes, always wanted to be a pilot, and I was a pilot for 40 years. I retired in 2001 and haven't flown since.
What is it like to retire from something that is your life?
Well, I had a lot of things going at the time, and I retired mainly because the company I worked for, Kitty Hawk International, went bankrupt. I was 58 at the time, and you can't get a job as a pilot at 58 because the mandatory retirement age is 60, and nobody wants to train you for just 2 years of service.
Why does a pilot have to retire at 60? Is there an assumption that their skills aren't as good?
I think they've changed it now in the last 1 or 2 years to age 65.
Oh, so then you would have 7 years, right? Or no?
I was 58 in 1998 when the company went bankrupt.
Got it. Okay. How do you harness all this life experience and professional experience as a pilot, flying all these different missions all over the world, all these different kinds of planes today? Do you help other pilots at all in any way? Do you consult or mentor other pilots?
No.
Do you have any interest in that?
I'm completely out of aviation. I don't even look up in the sky anymore. In 1996, I bought the claims for an operating gold mine up in Gold Butte, Nevada, and I spent the next 10 years rebuilding it and getting it recertificated, but the BLM shut it down just after I started mining, and so then I had to tear it down. Actually, all I had to do was take out my personal stuff, and they're tearing it down now. That happened about 2007.
And you have another mine, right?
I don't own it. I claimed it, and that was the only one. That was the Treasure Hawk mine. It's all gone.
Oh, my God, you're out. I notice on your site, The Living Moon, there's a link that says, who owns mineral rights? Just 3 men. Can you say something about that?
Yeah. There's the 3 guys. We posted their names, and, of course, that's got to be total baloney because there's millions of people that live up on the moon, and we certainly aren't going to claim mineral rights from them.
Let's switch to the moon for a moment. So we talk about mineral rights here on Earth and claiming mineral rights, but there are claims to minerals on the moon. Is that legal?
Apparently it is. There was a United Nations contract or an agreement with all countries that no single country would claim any part of the moon for any reason, but it didn't outlaw specifically a person from claiming it. So these three guys got together and went to the United Nations and claimed those parts of the moon for the mineral rights.
Wow. Does that include something like helium-3, for example? The access to helium-3 that Harrison Schmitt talked about when he was on the moon?
Well, helium-3 can only occur if there's no atmosphere, and the atmosphere on the moon is equivalent to 18,000 feet on the Earth. There isn't a breathable atmosphere up there. If you go to the moon, you have to go through 1 week of decompression, just as if you were climbing Mount Everest. You have to go up 5,000 or 6,000 feet at a time, and then spend a week or two acclimating your body to the lower pressure. So when you go to the moon, you have to spend a week acclimating yourself to the low pressure of the moon. But the moon's gravity is 70% of that of Earth, and the atmosphere is about 18,000 feet on Earth.
How do you know this, and how did you get into trying to sort out the atmosphere of the moon? What led you to try to figure that out?
Well, I didn't figure it out. I read Howard Menger's book. He went there in 1956. He was a guest of the people that are on the moon, and he's the one that said that there was a breathable atmosphere. And then I figured out what the gravity was by the fully Aldous Newton law of inverse square, which you don't need to use the density. Now, in order to understand that, you have to understand that Newton's second law is wrong. There is no basis for Newton's assumption that gravitational force is due and is proportional to the quantity or density of matter. So NASA and everybody uses the quantity and density of matter to predict gravity, and it's not true. That's not the way it works. So they used an assumption of the moon being 3.34 grams per cubic centimeter as the density of the moon and 5.5 grams per centimeter cubed for the density of the Earth. And through that, they worked out the density of the moon would be 1/6 that of Earth, but that's not true. There is no basis that gravitational force is due to the quantity or density of matter. There's a good book on that called Gravitational Force of the Sun by Perry Spalter. It's Spolter, and she explains the whole thing mathematically and scientifically. And for anybody who's interested in, I suggest you get that book and catch up on the new science.
How come NASA's not integrating the new science that you're describing in the way that they are operating?
Because they are hiding everything that they know about our solar system and the universe. Our solar system has a tremendous population on every single planet, on every single moon, and every single satellite in our solar system. In other words, there's people on Venus, on the moon, on Mars, on Jupiter, on Neptune, on Saturn, on Pluto, and all the rest. Not only on the planets, but on the planets, moons, and satellites. The solar system is teeming with people just like us, humans just like us, and also alien forms of all different kinds.
You say that with such calmness and poise.
Well, it's true.
How do you explain to the public who doesn't have a frame of reference for the fact that there's a secret space program? Can you talk about that?
Well, sure. Google the United States Space Command and see how many divisions there are under the Space Command. We have about 4,000 astronauts, current and qualified, that go to all the space stations we have around the Earth. We have 26 orbiting offensive weaponized satellites, and the Navy has 2 command satellites that they use to operate these weaponized orbiting satellites. That's in addition to the ISS, the International Space Station. There's no reason anybody should know this. They wouldn't comprehend it. It's not part of their day. Most people's day is made up of going to work, trying to make a living, trying to feed their family, and there's no